When machines return to base, they are no longer automatons. They are mechanisms with purpose, droids with severed umbilical strings. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Donny Winter, and I am very excited to be joined by my dear friend Ryan tonight to have a wonderful conversation.
Hello.
It's great to see you. We're going to have a wonderful conversation about a musical collaboration that we recently worked on an album that was just released titled Recovery. And essentially, we're calling it a collision of poetry and music. And I personally, I'm going to gush for a second. I never imagined that I would have the opportunity to do this. I've, as a musical person and as a poet, have kind of wanted those worlds to collide often. It's never really gotten there. And Ryan finding me made it happen, and it was amazing. So, Ryan,
Serendipity.
serendipity. It's great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's been really exciting to collaborate and to finally push this album out to the world. It's been a lot of hours and blood, sweat, and tears. I'm happy that other people are getting something from it and maybe feeling some sort of catharsis through our collective works. So it's been great so far.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I'm glad. So I guess, well, obviously, we probably should begin by talking about what Recovery as an album is. So, do you want to talk about that for a
Sure.
second?
So this whole idea was born out of the quarantine. And I realized that I was kind of quietly starving for communication and starving for collaboration. I've been a songwriter for a long time, but I was just starting to really feel the effects of staying in my house 24 hours a day. So I had a random thought, got on Facebook, searched up St. Augustine poetry. I don't even know why it sparked in my mind, but somewhere a synapse went, and I found a poet named Chris Bodor. So looked him up, contacted him, like, hey, I write songs. Yeah, do you want to collaborate? This was just a shot in the dark. I figured maybe he'd never even respond, but he was all about it. And I really proved to myself that I could make some compelling art and music around a poem and not take away from the poem, but to really add to it and to lift it up and amplify it. So once I got my feet wet there, that recurring theme of recovery just kind of kept coming back. I kept seeing society wise more fractured than ever. COVID took its toll on everybody. January 6th, all the divide and hatred and just pain that I felt us as a country going through. And I just thought recovery would be a universal topic that myself and other poets could really hug our arms around and put out some honest art.
Well, and I love that because throughout history, both music and poetry have been kind of like vehicles for having commentary about the human condition, about things happening in society, right? So the fact that you came up with this idea to combine both in a way that appeals to the different strengths of the participants involved, like that, like I think that's really cool, like that, not to sound childish, but it's really cool, right? um
Yeah, it's a delicate dance because I don't, obviously I'm writing the music, but I don't want the poet to feel like I'm overshadowing them, or like the words that I sing and the stuff that I'm playing. I'm always really careful not to feel like I'm taking the shine away from the artist's work, because I wouldn't have the song if it wasn't for the poet and the poetry. The poetry is what is the catalyst for the music itself.
right, yeah. So over the course of this process, you connecting with Chris and developing one of his pieces into a poem, that's how you then, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, that's how you began connecting with other poets, myself
Yeah,
included.
there is a direct line. It's like the Kevin Bacon, whatever, whatever, 7 degrees of whatever.
Separation. I think,
You know, you know what I'm
yeah, I
talking
think I
about.
know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So the day that I sent Chris the song. It was called "The Last Man on Earth." He's like, "Oh, I should put you in touch with my friend Jared." And I didn't know anything about Jared Morningstar. Thought he was from St. Augustine. Had no idea. But ended up having about an hour-long conversation with Jared the same night. Didn't even know the guy, but we just connected so deeply. Just poetry, music, the spirit of collaboration. So we became fast friends. We put out a couple songs, and then through his Facebook, I saw you because he is a member of
Oh,
what is it?
probably
Alien.
some group. We
It
have
was
so many.
no, it was the Alien Buddha group. That's what it was.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so I had two poets, kind of like under my belt. So I just clicked on that, and I came upon your reading of A Soluble Tablet, and I was like, oh, like I can connect to that. And so I watched it, and I was just like, holy cow! Like I have to, I have to get this guy too. And so got you on board, and then throughout you guys, I mean, the team, the recovery team, just grew. We've got several people that you guys invited. I never even read their poetry, but you guys vouch for them, and we are stronger for it.
Yeah, like it's really, it kind of spread like wildfire after a while once it started kind of lifting off the ground. And before, like we worked together on recovery specifically, I think you took at least two or three of my poems and turned them into musical compositions. I know it was
Right, we
a
did three
soluble
together.
tab. Yeah, it was a soluble tablet, my closet as a reliquary, and
Boys will be boys.
boys will be boys. And of course, I was nerding out big time over that. Like I love each of those pieces because they are so unique, and I think that they bring each poem to life through the music, which is really poignant for me. One thing that I was really eager for, because as this album was taking shape, it was also happening during the release of my second collection of poems, Feats of Alchemy. And of course, you had asked, thank you. You had asked if I would, contribute a poem to the recovery project. And I was just like, well, I love this poem that I just wrote and put out. So I was like, I'm going to send it to Ryan and see what he thinks. So,
Uh,
and I mean, it took off from there, but like, describe your end of like receiving that poem and devising music for it.
I've always loved the last song on albums. It seems like bands and artists save their most cathartic, like I don't know, the most unique uh, song for the very end. And I felt like that's what you did with your poem, Feats of Alchemy. Because your collection kind of comes and goes in waves, topics, emotions. But at the very end, man, you just put a bow on it with that poem. And I got scenes of post-apocalyptic, landscapes. I'm thinking like Mad Max almost. But I'm also thinking about kind of the triumph in the moment too, to where, you could still dance on someone's grave with your robot legs. I think it's how you something like that.
Yeah.
It's how you described it. So there is a real sense of overcoming that just it fits so well into the theme of recovery. And then when you sent me the poem, the way that you delivered it, you deliver it with such a measured tone. There's such a control.
Wow, thank you. Like, I really appreciate you saying that. And I did deliberately end the collection with that poem for that exact reason, because kind of like the album Recovery, like I feel like the whole collection of Feats of Alchemy is kind of mapping out my own recovery process as an LGBTQ plus person, having come out and navigated a bunch of different challenges, which is why like that cyborg imagery comes out, because I've kind of felt like over the years I've had to kind of manufacture myself in order to survive different things, right? And I felt so ashamed of having to manufacture myself, but looking back on it, I'm kind of glad that I did, because it helped me feel like I'm able to traverse things more effectively.
Did you know, like as soon as you wrote it, that it would be, the last poem in your collection?
Um, yes and no. So the interesting thing about the poem is originally I was going to end the collection on the the poem that takes place right before it, and I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is. Terrible, I know. But I don't know, I got to that second to last poem and I was like, you know what? There needs to be a bow on top, like you suggested. So I Feats of Alchemy was the last poem I wrote, and it is the last poem in the collection. It took me forever to write because I wanted to get it right. And I wanted it to come from a place of solace, of
I definitely
confidence.
I definitely get the solace. I
Thank you.
definitely get the
Yeah.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's kind of like this strange comfort that we get once we go through that recovery process and acknowledge the fact that it wasn't pretty, the fact that it was dirty and grungy and
Mm.
difficult and all of that jazz. So, and I'm glad that the song also kind of sonically took that shape along with your lyrics. So, do you want to talk about your part of the entire track?
Yeah. So this was song 6 for the album, I believe.
Song
And I
was it song? Yeah. No, was it track 7?
maybe it was 7.
I think it was 7.
It's been a long day. Yeah, it was 7. So I really wanted to kind of add some grit, some dirt, some just rock to the project. I've always hated albums that just kind of felt the same song, the same tempo, the same key. So I knew whatever I was going to do, it was going to be loud. But your poem specifically was a great vehicle for that. Like you hear like little robot kind of clinking sounds in the beginning. Um, so yeah, it just kind of took on a life of itself. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a little effect in there right before it gets heavy, and it goes. Okay,
Oh
so
gosh, yes.
fun fact: the entire song started with that little snippet. So I made that little snippet on an app, put it in my GarageBand, which is my music recording software, and I just had it looping all the way for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I wrote the bass line underneath that dun dun. And then I was like, all right, now what do I do? Because it sounds like a robot playing guitar over this. But that's where it kind of started. And from there, this was a song that I've kind of built piece by piece. So started with the intro, and then I wrote the verse separately. Chorus took forever for me to sing and to get right, but I finally got it. And then it just went from there. But very happy with how it turned out.
Oh, me too. And I love that you're describing this process because it's so hard to fathom that this very complex track started from such a small spark. Then again, when you think about it though, like that's kind of like how our poems started too. Like they might start from a word or a concept, and it kind of has the snowball effect, right?
I mean, if you get lucky, you've got the whole song like in your head, and you lay it down, and verse, chorus, verse, bridge, solo, done. But with this, it's like, okay, I got 20 seconds. I'm going to knock out those 20 seconds. It's done. Then I'm going to move on to the next chunk, and then I want to do something that kind of elevates what Donny's saying here. Okay, but then I want to sing here. So it's a painstaking. This one was a painstaking process. For sure. And I go back to the vocals because I'm not a natural singer. I've never been a natural singer, so I had to really push my voice, so much so that I actually had to go upstairs because I didn't want to wake up the baby or anything. So I went upstairs, kind of mustered all the vocal might I could, and then eventually I feel like I sang it in tune.
Well, and I've listened to your music for some time, obviously before our collaboration. Because once we were introduced to one another, I think we kind of went through this process where we started exploring each other's work a bit. And I could tell with Feats of Alchemy that you really, I mean, I feel like with all of the songs, you wanted to challenge yourself in different ways. But I feel like for Feats of Alchemy, like I, I just got this feeling that you were really testing your boundaries and doing so out of like the thrill of it too. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but
It's been a while since I've turned up the guitar. I mean, this is the kind of these are the kind of songs that I used to write all the time. But it's been so long since I ever did a song like that. Just for me, for a song that's being put out by me. Usually, I write the song and I have this like really high chorus in my head, and the singer that I work with can sing it, no problem. But now this is completely different mindset and process. But interesting, right before I started the song, you and we were talking about music, and I was asking you about your your musical influences, and you mentioned Evanescence.
Uh,
And so I listened to a whole bunch of Evanescence songs right before I started writing this. And it makes perfect sense now because it has this kind of like, I don't know, like mid 2000s kind of new rock vibe about it. Um,
yeah, like it.
yeah.
Well, I was really nerding out when you asked me because I'm also a huge music person. So getting the opportunity to talk about Evanescence and like Linkin Park, for example, two of my very favorite bands that like kind of shaped me as a teenager, and the fact that you were willing to like explore those, and I know you were familiar with some of their work to some degree, but the fact that you were willing to take a deep dive and kind of like infuse like those sonic qualities into Feats of Alchemy, like to me these were like so many worlds colliding for me. I really enjoyed it.
And I think this was our fourth collaboration together. So this isn't something that I think I could have made when I first met you, because I just didn't, I didn't know you, and I
Right.
didn't necessarily know your motivations, your background, those kind of things. But it was a much more natural process this time for both of the songs that we put out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah, I
felt very
agree.
aligned this time, both these times for these two songs.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So I do have one final question for us to talk about. Like obviously as people listen to this album, like we want, like I'm sure each individual is going to want listeners to take away something from what they're listening to, right? When people stumble across Feats of Alchemy, as a musician, what do you hope they take away from this piece? And then I'll
Ooh,
answer it too.
that's a great question. Yeah, I just hope it makes them feel something. I hope it makes them feel a sense of connection, or a sense of catharsis. I know I keep coming back to that word, but I want there to be some sort of release of serotonin when someone hears these songs, because ultimately, no matter how dark the message gets, they're songs of healing. Ultimately. So if we can make someone just feel a little bit of connection to that, maybe they can heal by seeing that we've come out through the other side, and you know
I love
on
that.
the better end of things. So yeah, I want people to just to feel it, just to feel something.
Yeah, same here. I would echo that for sure. I would also add that I want people to see that healing isn't a beautiful process. It's very painful sometimes, and sometimes we don't have any way to avoid the fact that healing can be painful. But at the end of the day, as the poem and song suggests, like our stories are the seeds that we scatter across the world, right? And they germinate in other people when they listen to them or read them or are exposed to them in some way. And I hope that in through those seeds that people can find the catharsis and that sense of renewal in their own life, regardless what they are navigating. So
I find myself just listening back to the songs too, and listening to the poems, and how raw and honest and forthcoming, perfect strangers were, and sharing these songs with me. And so I hope the listener gets that sense too. It takes bravery to speak without a filter, and to talk about your shortcomings and your darkest moments. It's not easy to do that. It's not easy to put that out to the world and put it on iTunes and Amazon and everything else. Like now everybody, my mom can read my lyrics and see what I'm thinking, because I don't hold back really anything anymore. So
yeah,
hopefully people can take heart a little bit from what we're putting out there.
yeah, I agree, and I hope that they see that because you mentioned the fact that we're perfect strangers working together. The fact that we were able to trust one another enough to handle each other's, well, not necessarily handle, but acknowledge and work with each other's vulnerability in order to create something very cathartic and beautiful, right? Like I think that itself kind of acts as a model, right?
And I think you can see that in the music that's being pushed out there, because the music it's full. It's full because my heart's full. My heart's full of writing and reading you guys' poems, and so all of that is it's just a healthy channel for me. So all this honesty and communication and heart to heart between us is all just going right back into the songs. And I think you can get that sense,
Yeah.
from song 1 to song 13. They're full of a lot of emotions and, a lot of us putting our hearts out there for everybody
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah. It's kind of scary to do that, but at the end of the
It
day, I feel better now that I did.
it is a scary thing, 100%. That's one of the reasons why don't even go by my name when I'm, putting my music out there. It's a coward. I wanted to hide behind a pseudonym,
Oh.
you know.
I'm just so used to being out there that I don't care anymore. So, before we end our conversation, let's talk about where we can find Recovery by Brotherwell.
So Recovery could be found at iTunes. So you could check it out there. You can buy each individual track, or you can just buy the whole album for less than $10, $9.99. You can also purchase it from Bandcamp. Only difference is you're going to be able to download your individual files from Bandcamp. So it's not as seamless as the iTunes experience, but that money actually goes to charity a lot faster, because our group instantly gets paid when you purchase through Bandcamp. You can also stream on Spotify, Amazon Music. You can ask Alexa to play us. You just have to pronounce Brotherwell a very, very specific way. And then if all else fails, just Google search Brotherwell. It's as easy as that. We are just about everywhere these days.
I love it. And yeah, and I don't think we talked about the charity yet. Do
How
you want
can
to
we
talk
not?
about yeah, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, well, man. So it's a charity called Tiny Changes. Tiny Changes was created in the wake of the passing of Scottish band Frightened Rabbit singer Scott Hutchison. So in his death came something positive. One of his most famous lyrics was, "While I'm alive, I'll make tiny changes to Earth." And so his family and friends started up a charity where all money goes to mental health of youth and children, because they believe that it's a very underrepresented population, and the youth are usually the ones that are least likely to speak up when they're struggling. So we haven't been able to donate a super lot, but we've made ever so small an impact. So I think we can champion that as a group, that we've done something to make someone else's life just a little bit better. But all proceeds, whether you stream or purchase, are going to go to Tiny Changes. And I look forward to partnering with them throughout any other project I put out. I'm happy to continue to donate.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Ryan, again, thank you for joining me to have this chat. Thank you for your friendship,
Thank you.
and thank you for just thank you for all of this. I really enjoyed this process. As a writer, it's been, I would say, the defining moment of my writing career so far. So I really appreciate it.
It's been a complete paradigm shift for me. I can't think of the last time I wrote a song. It's all been poetry, music projects, and I've got so many in the backlog right now. I've got so many projects. Just I could work every day and never finish, which is great, because that's perfect for where my head's at. So
That's
that's great.
good. That's
Yeah.
good. Well, check out our album, everyone, and thank you for listening. And we will talk to you again soon.
Brotherwell Recovery. Check it out.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.